2 weeks after celebrating my wife's birthday, she dropped a bombshell that would alter the course of my life in ways I never imagined. She admitted to having developed feelings for someone she met online, someone she initially thought was just a friend, but who quickly became much more. With tears in her eyes, she told me that she loved me deeply and was afraid that this revelation would break us. Yet she still wanted to explore her feelings for this other man. My world was flipped upside down in an instant. I was furious, heartbroken, and devastated. This wasn't just a betrayal of my trust, it was a betrayal of our vows, the life we built together, and the family we had worked so hard to protect. I told her she needed to end it immediately, cut off all contact, and erase any traces of him from her life. She nodded in agreement, but something about her reaction felt hollow. The next day, I experienced my first real bout of anxiety. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I had to leave the house, so I got in my car and just drove. When I came back, I reiterated what I needed from her, and though she said yes, her hesitation was palpable. That's when everything began to spiral downward. She grew cold and distant, offering no genuine remorse, no heartfelt apology. Even when she did say she was sorry, it felt forced, almost like it was scripted, and she only apologized in writing. It wasn't until I called her out on not apologizing face to face that she even tried. In the weeks that followed, the intimacy between us disappeared entirely. We were like two strangers living under the same roof, barely speaking and avoiding each other. The final nail in the coffin came when I learned she hadn't even deleted the photos of him from her phone. I asked her why, and all she did was shrug and say, "History?" That answer was a punch to the gut. I found explicit sexual images in her hidden folder, images of them that she had kept. When I asked her to hand over the phone so I could see it, she did. But the moment she realized I saw his pictures, she ripped the phone out of my hands. She confessed that they had masturbated together multiple times using remote-controlled sex toys, but tried to downplay how often it happened. Since that discovery, she's changed the password on her phone twice in just 4 days, something she's never done in the 14 years we've been together. Around the same time, she went out of state for a bachelorette party, in the very state where her online affair partner lives. Before she left, I noticed her acting strangely. She was frazzled, unlike anything I'd seen before. When I looked at her suitcase, I saw that she had packed 2 vibrators. My mind was racing with suspicion, and the tension between us was unbearable. During the trip, she would FaceTime me and the kids every night, but she barely spoke to me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she had met up with him. When I confronted her about it after she returned, she deflected, as usual, making the conversation about her feelings or blaming me for past mistakes. The truth is, life hadn't been easy for us long before this betrayal. Back in early 2021, we were both at home. She was working remotely. Our kids were being homeschooled, and I was recovering from reconstructive hip surgery. To make matters worse, we had bed bugs and were dealing with all the stress that comes with a pandemic. Then, in April of that year, our entire family got COVID. We unknowingly passed it to my mom, and she ended up in the hospital. By June 3rd, I had to make the excruciating decision to take her off life support. Watching my mother slip away while I pulled the plug broke me in ways I still haven't fully recovered from. 5 months later, my paternal grandmother passed away, and on the way back from her funeral, I got the news that my maternal grandfather had also died. Grief consumed me, and I spent the next year consumed by probate court, doing 95% of the legal work myself while still trying to heal physically and emotionally from everything I'd been through. We received an inheritance and decided to move back to our home state. I told my wife she could take a break from working and that I would go back to my job at our family's acupuncture clinic. But instead of returning to work, we both fell into a deep depression that lasted for about 8 months. It felt like life was closing in on us, and we couldn't escape the weight of everything that had happened. Eventually, my wife found a job first, and I could sense the resentment building within her. She was angry, and rightfully so. I had promised to be the one to provide, but I was stuck in my own spiral of grief and depression, unable to pull myself out. By the following summer, she told me we were in serious trouble. She said she was frustrated with me, and though she wasn't ready to give up yet, the tension was thick between us. That conversation was a wake-up call for me. I started to put in real work to improve myself, our relationship, and our family. I wanted to be the husband and father I had promised to be. By January, things seemed to be turning around, but then my maternal grandmother was diagnosed with cancer. I knew I would need to step up and be her caregiver. My first day with her was at the end of April for about 6 days, and during that time, unbeknownst to me, my wife had already started playing with those remote-controlled sex toys with other people online. In early May, my wife texted me saying she had noticed my efforts to improve. She told me she felt crazy for ever thinking about leaving and said we were finally in a good place. I believed her. By June, when the kids were out of school, I took them and my grandmother's sister up to stay with my grandmother. My wife came up with our daughter for 2 weeks, and we spent time together as a family. Everything seemed to be okay, but it was a lie. A week after my grandmother passed away, we returned home as a family, celebrated my wife and daughter's birthdays, and 2 weeks later, she revealed her emotional affair. Since then, she's been a completely different person. She says she feels disconnected from everyone, including me and our kids. She's even gone so far as to say she doesn't know if the person I fell in love with ever existed, and that she's barely holding on to her emotional connection with the children. She claims she needs space and can't make any promises about the future of our relationship. At one point, she even mentioned she might be polyamorous or into ethical non-monogamy. But how can she manage that when she can't even maintain a relationship with me? One of the most hurtful moments came when I asked her to open her hidden folder again. She scrolled quickly to the top, then said, "Nope, still some there." When I told her to give me the phone, she refused, and that was the breaking point for me. I took off my ring, placed it on her nightstand, and walked out. In my frustration, I told her she had destroyed our family and hoped it was worth it. Since that night, we've been sleeping in separate bedrooms, barely talking. She pretends things are normal in front of the kids, calling me babe and honey, but it only makes my blood boil. It's as if I'm living with a stranger, someone I don't recognize. My wife has become emotionally detached and void of any real feelings. She guards her phone like a hawk, and every interaction with her feels like a lie. She says she's no longer talking to anyone online, and that she doesn't have the capacity for that right now. But how can I believe her when so much of what she's said has already been a lie? The fact that she did all of this while sitting right next to me only makes it worse. We've decided to start therapy, but she's already told me she doesn't believe our marriage is salvageable. She says the only thing she can do is make sure we have a roof over our heads. Meanwhile, I'm the one holding everything together, running the household, taking care of the kids, and trying to make sense of this nightmare. Even my therapist has pointed out the strange role reversal, where I'm the one trying to fix everything, and she's acting like the one who's been wronged. We're stuck like this for the next 3 years because of financial reasons and our lease. She starts a new job tomorrow, which is a small relief since we won't have to work together anymore. But our situation is a living nightmare. I don't sleep, and neither does our youngest. One of us is constantly going for a drive late at night, just to escape the suffocating tension in the houses. So here I am, asking for advice. What do you think about this situation? How do I even begin to make sense of this?